believe it or not, one of the most ridiculous claims that Donald Trump makes and people who like him is about how things are so unfair. And the reality is, contrary to the belief of many right wingers and definitely MAGA, things are rigged in his favor, not against him. Things are rigged in his favor. He's not getting unfair treatment. A lot of the treatment you see, it's of his own doing. He's the one who does the things that leads to the problem that's happening. Let me give you an example. So right now, Donald Trump is trying to talk nice with Walz in Minnesota, and he is, he's removed the guy, the Border Patrol guy with the trench coat or whatever. He's putting in some new person, and he's changing up his language, seeming to be a little bit of reasonable. And I can guarantee you he's going to get so much credit, even though ultimately you can be assured that he's not really changing his tactics. They're going to continue to be savages. They're going to continue to violate our rights. You're going to continue to hear the types of stories we've been hearing. Maybe not in that particular state. Maybe it's in other states, but he's going to keep doing what he wants to do, right? Because it's not about Kristi Noem or whatever. It's about Trump, right? The way things are happening, it's the way he wants it, right? He's the one who hired these people, right? He knows what these people are about. He wouldn't hire them if he didn't want people like this, right? He wants what's been happening to happen. But here's the reality. All he's got to do is back off just a little bit, right? And it's ironic because I see Democrats, pushing him to, tone down the rhetoric and giving him credit for the little things that he's doing. But the thing about it, here's the reality of why things are rigged in his favor. Americans are lazy. That's just a reality. They're lazy. They don't want to be bothered, right? Contrary to Cigar from Breaking Points, right? Who thinks that everybody out there protesting, they just want the chaos. They just want all the... People don't want to be out in the cold. They were out there in one of the coldest days of the year. With this major storm, it's sub-zero temperatures, freezing. You think people want to be out there in the cold like that? No, they want to be home with their families. They want to be with their loved ones. They want to be playing games, watching movies. They want to be out, visiting family, doing the things that they enjoy. Art, music, so many different things, right? That's what people want to be doing. So protesting and doing boycotts and all this kind of stuff, people don't want to be bothered, right? So all Trump has to do is tone it down just a little bit. Because notice he's been doing a lot of craziness before they even started the major protest, right? Trump had to do this and then that's something else and then something else and then escalate and this and that. And then after a while of just pounding, people eventually, start to let's go protest, right? But as soon as he backs off a little bit, it's kind of like, a lot of people... there's different levels, right? You have some people who kind of more centrist independents who are going to be like, well, let's wait and see. Well, it seems like he's gotten a message and, he seems kind of reasonable. I see he had a nice talk with Tim Walz and he had a nice talk with Mamdani in New York, and the media, man, they seem to be very, giving him a hard time, but I think he's trying. And then, he just say a couple of things, some nice things about, we need to unify as a country and this division, just to say the words. And because again, the alternative is out in the cold and fighting and whatever, or you could just assume that he's being honest when he says, hey, let's unite, right? There's a ton of people who will fall for it, right? Because they don't want to be out there in the streets in the cold fighting. They want to be home with their families. They want to be enjoying life. We got one life to live. Life is a lot shorter than many of us realize when we're very young. It goes very, very fast, right? People are not trying to protest. They're not trying to boycott. That's why it was embarrassing that for all the stuff we've seen and for all this aggressive rhetoric, we're losing our democracy. We couldn't even get more than, I think, 7 million at the most. And, the left wing is so clueless that they're impressed with that. That's impressive. I mean, If you're really lame and therefore you're only comparing it to previous protests, then yeah, it was a lot of people. But if you consider the gravity of what's happening, how serious things and the decades of damage to the country, and again, just listen to the words that the left has been saying about what's happening to the country. And you meet all of that severe level of insanity with just 5 million people. Puerto Rico is part of the United States of America. And they got way more percentage of people in the streets. And what do you know? A bunch of their politicians stepped down almost immediately. Wow. Massive amounts of people. 5 million is not massive. 7 million is not massive for a population of 300 and something million people, right? They got a way higher percentage of the population out in the streets. Massive. It was so much people out there. You know, the thing about it is when the numbers are that large, like minimum for America is 50 million. If you're not approaching 50 million people in the streets, then, and if the main thing you're doing is just being in the streets, you're not doing anything, man. It's easy to ignore 5 million, 7 million. I mean, to some degree, it's kind of like, oh, okay, people are getting kind of upset, right? But you can ignore 5 million, right? When you think about how many, because there's enough people in this country that you can win elections while having 5 million of the people in this country upset with you, right? 5 million people being upset at you is not enough for you to be nervous in a deep blue. But if you see 50 million people in the streets, even in deep blue, you're not safe. That's when they start paying attention, right? But the reality is, again, all he's got to do is ease off a little bit. Matter of fact, Donald Trump could sit on his ass for the rest of his term and don't do anything. Don't accomplish anything else. Just hang out, just tone down the rhetoric, right? Continue doing his corruption, doing all kinds of deals behind the scenes and getting rich and doing crypto things and whatever. Do that. Get rich. But just tone down all of the aggressive rhetoric and all of the insane, cruel things with deportation. And a ton of people are just going to be, able to, it's not going to be enough noise that they can't escape it. So they're going to escape it by focusing on their lives. Like, things are not crazy enough for them to feel like they need to be in the streets. So they won't be in the streets. They won't be boycotting. They won't be protesting. They'll be not focused on what's happening. So while Trump is doing all kind of craziness, they got no idea. The only reason why he's getting so much pushback is because he's doing so much BS, right? Again, he's the one that brings this stuff to himself. If he just chilled out, again, a lame ass president. You got to remember, look at January 6th, right? You even had major right-wingers and conservatives and Republicans saying, Trump did an insurrection and this and that and this is thing and enough's enough, blah, 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 right? They did all that for a short while, right? And a lot of Americans were just like, wow, this is horrible. And yet he was able to win again. And I mean, it wasn't a massive margin, but winning in the swing states, even barely. I mean, after doing January 6th, being involved in that, I mean, these are the same Americans, right, who voted for him after that we're dealing with now. So again, if he just chills out for a while, the short-term memory, people will forget. They'll get caught up in their lives. Before you know it, oh my goodness, 3 years have gone by. And then you could sit there and tell them, do you know he did this crypto deal and that crypto deal? And they'll be like, oh, I didn't hear that, I didn't hear it, right? So if he chills out, he will stop causing the damage that he's causing, stop with the tariff nonsense or whatever. So the economy will start to recover. The dollar will start to recover a bit. So a lot of positive economic things will happen from him just doing nothing. So at the end of his term, a bunch of people who are right now saying Trump is insane and this thing with it, whatever, they will have forgotten all of this. And they would say, listen, man, we got to give Trump credit. Look at the GDP is up, this is up, that is up, and the jobs are up and all this stuff. The dollar, he brought back that. Of course, he's going to get credit, right? He could do nothing and just claim that, America's greater than ever, whatever. And a ton of people will give him credit. All he's got to do is just chill out. It's rigged in his favor. Any other president has to actually deliver. Trump doesn't have to deliver. All he's got to do is shut his mouth and stop with the nonsense, do his corruption a little bit more on the down low, and a ton of Americans will tune out. Right? If you don't have citizens being shot in the face and all that kind of stuff, then they will be able to easily tune it out, not pay attention, not be engaged. At the end of his term, he's gonna. A lot of people are like, well, you know what? They're gonna oversimplify. They're gonna say under Biden we had this, inflation and this, that, and under Trump things are really, really good. I mean, they already did it for the first term, right? They already did it for the first term. Things are rigged in his favor. Who else do you know can sit on their ass for 3 years and yet will be looked upon as a great president? Obviously, liberals are not going to be thinking that, but a ton of people will. I can guarantee you. Again, they already did it, right? So things are rigged in his favor. He doesn't have to do much to win, win, win. You're going to get tired of winning, right? That's how bad he is. That's how bad he is. The reason that he has all these issues in the media, whatever, is because he's just that horrible. Right? Everything is in his favor. I'm guarantee you, CNN, MS Now, they would all love to talk about, well, actually, the GDP is looking pretty good, right? Because Trump is what? Pro-corporate. They're corporate media. So if he could just chill out so that things are more stable, which is good for the elites, right? Then they would be kind of like, both sides, right? Especially the Democrats. They'd be like, come on, guys. Abolish ICE. I mean, look, ICE is not that bad, right? Things are not rigged against Trump. They're rigged towards him, right? The system is rigged for his success. He's just that bad.